better just erase it from your mind.
Was it a work thing?
It might have been.
Oh, I know what it is, but I was out of state, and I didn't even have my cell phone, so I just read it later. I haven't talked to anyone about it.
She's trying to talk to you.
Oh, no.
That's not good.
Oh,
I will.
oh,
Okay, I'm putting in here.
Oh, it was
oh, yeah.
Matt. Matt. Matt, okay. Less likely that I'll forget.
I had an opportunity.
So I paid him yesterday.
I wonder if Joe is doing our invocation. The guy in the yellow-orange shirt there. That's not Daniel Ramsey.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other one is.
Let me go ask him.
So that's what they, I got it at the meeting.
Yeah, we haven't been off of it yet. So you have a list go around.
Yeah, cordial conversation.
Good, how are you doing?
Roger.
We had a list go.
Oh, is that right?
And if he's talking, he's gonna talk to his siblings. There's definitely some interest.
Is that right?
Yeah. I did not identify. Here we go.
He starts naming up our guys.
Sure.
That's
And the guy that's,
a good starting point.
Yeah.
wait a minute. I'm usually not on this side. It didn't stack up too good. I don't care, I'm taking it anyway.
Anything in the legislature that you're excited about?
Nothing too. How about you?
Right, yeah.
Kind of at the point where less new rules is better.
Yeah. It's been my theory for years. Although, that micro tip is interesting, the land use is interesting.
Yeah, Lord.
And the, the bill permitting. Not necessarily.
California and everything, just to welcome you in.
I'll probably be laying down on the floor side after.
Interest. It's too bad that didn't go.
Well, you just have some water.
Yeah, there's some interesting.
Well, there are a lot of
Sir, how are you today?
school district case right now. PCLU is sued teacher.
Oh, they're not, you're not lying.
Student was native American.
You gotta check every once in a while, don't you?
Yeah, we do that.
I agree.
We might play musical chairs with us again.
You never know.
And you guys from Ward 4, right on time.
I wanted to get in on the pool.
Beat Marcus.
I did.
Wow, we're all at the table again.
I like that. Hey, I did lose you, didn't I, the other day when we were talking?
Yeah.
I was just rattling on and stopped. Ed?
I tried to call you back and I had no signal.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I was headed out to work anyway when you called, you know, so.
I was surprised I was really able to talk as long as I could, because I was in northern Kansas and I was surprised.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to look at that stuff on the flat tax, or not the flat tax, but that consumption tax?
Did you send it? No, I haven't. I've been working day and night.
Okay, all right.
I've been working all night and then I go in during the day and do a little bit more stuff, and tonight should be my last day. Finish the job tonight.
Yeah.
You'll be happy.
Oh, I am happy. You know, other than whenever my punch list items turn
Sure.
out to be something that big, I can't imagine. We'll have a few.
Matt? Good. I think we've got a reverse poll tonight, Mr. Mayor. I mean, but not pool, not poll, pool.
Well, my goal was to arrive a little bit after you.
You
So,
did well.
Thank you.
I did address you correctly, didn't I, Mr. Mayor? Is
Yes,
that-
you did. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, with the mayor, we need a little, the mayor needs to,
Oh, really?
Well, the consent. About the
So what else is new?
Mr. Mayor,
consent agenda.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor,
there's a pool. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, sir,
Yes, sir.
I hope you exercise proper gender identity.
You just get the last names right. You'll start there.
All right, you guys. All right. Let's see, we have a few seconds here. We'll get going. Despite the harassment I'm taking up here at the table. Let's see. Andrew, you all ready? All right, everyone, let's get going. Let's call the meeting to order. We have an invocation, and I do not see Pastor Daniel Ramsey in the audience. Is he here? Okay, Joe Sucraw, would you be willing to fill in for us, please? Thank you very much.
Well, I happened to get the wrong date, and I guess it's a good thing I did. I want to thank you for the privilege of praying for you and with you. And I want to read something from a psalm that may describe how some people in America feel right now. In Psalm 94, 18 and 19, it said, "When I said my foot is slipping, your love, O Lord, supported me. When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought joy to my soul." Let's pray. God, I do thank you for blessing us today. God, with the beautiful frost on the trees this morning and then the wonderful sunshine and the warmth of the day. And I see Jessica here who gave us that good forecast. But Lord, it was you who gave us the weather, and I thank you for it. God, I thank you for this city, and I thank you for the representation of those who are here tonight. God, I want to ask for your blessing. But so many times we ask for your blessing. We bring our agenda to you and ask you to bless it. Would you help us to consider what it means to ask you for the agenda and then expect the blessing because we're following your will, your path, your way. God, be with each individual that is working for the city, each family, each department, the department heads. And I pray that you would just give wisdom and guidance to our leaders as they make decisions tonight. I pray this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Joe.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe, and it was an exact demonstration of everything happens for a reason. So, we have a roll call, please.
Nestle.
Here.
Tryon. Here. Bowles.
Here.
Lucas.
Here.
Garrett.
Here.
Carmen.
Here.
Rieger.
Here.
Woods.
Here.
A current copy of the Open Meetings Act of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers, roughly above Judy's head over there. So, the meeting procedure: the public may address specific agenda items at the pleasure of the mayor. If recognized by the mayor, please identify yourself by stating your name and address. Please address the council through the mayor and limit remarks to 3 minutes or less. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired in a public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. Next, we have the consent agenda. All matters under consent agenda are considered by the city council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any city council member may, however, remove an item from consent by request. Item number 1 of the consent agenda: approve minutes from the January 19th, 2021 meeting. Item number 2, authorize the mayor to execute the purchase agreement of a 2020 Dodge pickup from Jansen Motors for the water department.
I move we approve items 1 and 2 of the consent agenda.
Second.
I'm sorry, I did not hear who the second was.
Second.
Okay. Motion Nisly, second Rieger. Calling the question. Please vote. Okay, the consent agenda has passed. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 3. Second reading to adopt ordinance number 4050 to rezone certain lands from an R-2 dwelling district to an I-1 light industrial district located at 614, 617, and 619 North Grant Avenue. And Mr. Kibben will read the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, rezoning the south half of Lot 4 and all of Lot 5, Block 6, Town Lots Company, North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, and Lot 8 and Lot 9, Block 7, Town Lots Company, North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4050 to rezone certain land from an R2 dwelling district to an I1 light industrial district on second reading.
Second.
Okay, motion Garrick, second Lucas. Do we have any discussion on this issue? Okay, calling the question on item number 3. Please vote. Item number 3 has passed. Moving on to item number 4. Adopt ordinance number 4051 to create Special Water Improvement District number 3 to replace the existing 6-inch water main with an 8-inch water main along Reed Avenue from the intersection of Oak Street to the intersection of Phillip Street. And Mr. Kibben will read the ordinance.
An ordinance creating Special Water Improvement District Number 3 in the City of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, and describing said Special Water Improvement District and improvements to be constructed therein.
I move to approve the creation of a Special Water Improvement District Number 3.
Second.
Okay, motion Reeker, second Vols.
I have a question.
Mr. Reeker, you have the floor.
Mr. Kibben, is this, we've already approved a street repair replacement over there, I think, if I remember correctly. Is this just to update the infrastructure while we've got everything opened up?
Councilman, Mayor Keller, Councilman Reeker, I'll have Brent explain.
Okay.
If that'd be okay with you.
It's fine, perfectly fine.
Good evening, I'm Brent Berkland, City Engineer, Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker. To address your question, when it was approved, the paving repair, what we're looking at was a mill the asphalt and then fill it with a new 2-inch asphalt top. And since then, we've had 3 more main breaks. And the current main was put in approximately 1967, so it's a little over 50 years old. And the main breaks were at the beginning at Oak, near Union, and then near Phillips. So it's spread out, and the amount of breaks have been increasing, and it's in the street. So our concern was if we fix the street and then continue to have main breaks in the street, we're going to ruin what we just fixed. And we've seen it accelerate. If we had had perfect foresight and known we were going to have the acceleration of it, we would have probably done both at the same time, but that's what we've seen. And so we're looking at replacing it, putting it outside of the street as a separate item. And so it'll be behind the sidewalk, out of the street. And what we've seen also with when we do heavy asphalt repair like the mill and fill, frequently it'll cause more breaks. If that main already has issues, when we put heavy vibratory equipment on it, it's going to cause more breaks. So that's the process that we went through to get to where we're at now.
Have you started on any of the street repair today?
Not yet, no.
Okay. So this will be all essentially one project, even though it'll be 2 separate projects?
That's correct.
Okay.
Quick follow-up question for you, if that's okay.
You have the floor.
What's rough approximate cost range, and then will this come out of the city budget, or will this come out of the water, like the water fees and that budget?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Lucas, what we were looking at as far as cost, roughly around 225,000 is our estimate. We were looking at trying to bore most of it to minimize the disruption in the area with the location where it's at, and also to reduce some of the secondary costs of paving repair. But it might be a better question, I guess, for answering to Mr. Kibben or to Lane, that our discussions, that it sound like it would be the water department, it'd come from the water department side. But as far as the financing, the creation of the district will allow several different ways to be looked, whether it's cash or do a cash on hand, some budget adjustments, or to do financing. Either option would be considered. But right now, I think what has been talked is to pay it out of pocket to do it, as opposed to getting any financing for it.
Thank you.
Just a question, Mr. Reeker, there would be no assessments against property owners on this project. Would you be willing to waive the 3 readings? I'm just asking, it'd be a friendly amendment to your motion.
I guess I don't see any reason not to waive them. Is there a reason that you want them waived?
If Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker, the reason I would like to speed it up is we could speed up the process instead of waiting 4 more weeks to have it approved to go. We're trying to move as fast as we can to try to hit the construction season. I mean, it feels early, January, February, but when we do our month ad time, and then we have a month to get things going, I mean, it's going to be April already, roughly. So the sooner, the better. So I would, if it would be all right with the council, I would request that we consider waiving the 3 readings just to expedite the process.
So you're gonna take this out to bid, I take it? You're not gonna
Correct.
have the water department do it?
Correct.
Okay. I have no problem with amending the amendment.
I would like just to
the
make
motion.
could I make a friendly amendment to the motion, waive the 3 readings?
Second.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry, Mark.
Okay, hold on just a second. So we have a motion for an amendment. We have a second on the amendment. We'll now have discussion, and Mr. Woods will ask his question. So you have the floor.
Have all the residents been notified, or easement, will it all be in city easements that we already have?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Woods, the plan is it's going to be an existing right-of-way. And we haven't notified the property owners yet. We're not quite that far in the process yet, but there will be notifications to the public, mainly of the construction timing and how it might impact them. What we found, it works better to have the contractor, in line, to give, so we know, because the question that's usually asked is, when is it going to happen? And you can't really answer when until you have the contractor on board and then a schedule of when they want to do it. So that would be the expectation.
Any other discussion?
Along
Mr.
those
Reeker, you have the
lines,
floor.
Mr. Berglund, how are the people being notified? I know we've had some issues with that in the past. Are they gonna be notified by certified letter, or do you know?
I guess Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker, what we've been doing on the assessments is we've been doing more of the legal part with a certified letter.
Okay.
And that's what we have, I think, 45 services over in this area. So when you do the math on it, it's going to be a few $100s to do certified. But that would be the official way to give people a heads up in the area. That's on the very front end. Most of the time on our contracts, we require the contractor to discuss with the owner when they get to the point of interrupting their service. They need to have 2 days notice. Some of it, the homeowner will notice there's a big hole in their, somewhere close to their water, but the contractor has to give them a couple days heads up that they're gonna shut them off, switch over the service, things like that.
Sure.
So,
So it's more of a courtesy notification,
Correct.
really? Okay, thank you, Brent.
Mr. Carmen?
Did you have a question, Ty? I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Carmen, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Personally, since, we're not notifying these folks in order to get their opinion on whether or not we should do this. We're just doing it, as you said, as a courtesy to let them know what to expect in front of their homes. I see nothing to be gained really by going to the expense of doing certified mail. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Lucas, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with that perspective too, because this is in the right of way. I mean, I certainly appreciate that the contractors in the city work with people because it's an interruption getting into their driveways and stuff, but this is on right of way, not on private property. And so I concur with Mr. Cartman's feedback on that.
Any other further discussion on this issue? Okay, we're going to call the question on the amendment. And Mr. Nisley, would you state your friendly amendment again, please, just for the record?
The amendment was that, move that we waive 3 readings on the Special Water Improvement District number 3, the creation of the Special Water Improvement District number 3, as there are no assessments to property owners.
Okay, so we will now vote on whether we will waive all 3 readings. This does require a two-thirds vote of the council to approve. So please vote on that issue, calling the question. Mr. Woods, there we go, thank you. Okay. The yeas have it, so that passes. So this will be the only reading of this issue, of this question. Yes, I know. So now we're back. Do we have any other further discussion on the main motion, which is, let's see, item number 4 on our agenda? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 4, please vote. Okay, that passes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brent. Moving on to item number 5. Adopt ordinance number 4052 to create Special Water Improvement District number 4 to replace the existing 8-inch water main with a 12-inch water main along Jeffers Street from A Street to Leota Street, thence east to Dewey Street. Mr. Kibben will now read the ordinance.
An ordinance creating Special Water Improvement District number 4 in the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, and describing said Special Water Improvement District and improvements to be constructed therein.
I move to approve the creation of Special Water Improvement District number 4.
Second.
We have a motion by Garrick and a second by Reeker. Do we have any discussion on item number 5? City
I
engineer.
do ask a question. I guess there's also 3 readings on this. I mean, is there any need, is there any time constraint on this? There is no assessment on property owners.
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Neasley, there is no assessment on this. This is being relocated. The current water main is under Jeffers. It's going to be relocated out from underneath Jeffers. There's multiple reasons. One, the state says we have to do it, so we're going to do it. The other thing is the water main was put in prior to the 50s, so it's over 70 years old. And the thing that would help if we did waive the 3 readings, again, it would expedite the process of continuing the design and advancing the whole project. It would save it. Right now, it'd give us about a month more of construction season. We'd like to try to get it done this construction season if we can. NDOT has said that they're going to bid Jeffers in 2022 and do construction in 23. So next year they're going to be bidding the removal or repair of Jeffers, so.
Mr. Garrick, would you consider an amendment to waive the three readings on this?
I'd be okay with that, Mr. Reeker.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I have another question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so, see, currently we don't have a motion, so let's take Ed's question real quick, just for the sake of clarity.
Did Brad make the motion?
I did not.
Sorry, it's a 70-year-old mind. I thought somebody made the motion. I apologize.
That's all right. That's right.
Mr. Mayor, am I understanding, Brent, that this replacement of the water main is going to be done in conjunction with the replacement of the road surface at the same time NDOR replaces the road, or is this going to be a separate construction project?
Mayor Kelleher and Councilman Reeker, this is going to be a separate project. The 1st to 6th Street on Jeffers, that was done together, the state and the city, but the state did it on behalf of the city. And there was quite a few complications with the process of doing that. And so the city's gonna do it separately. We paid for it prior, we paid for it last time. And so we're just doing it so that it's under our control and will be done ahead of when the state gets there. So when the concrete work and things on Jeffers go, this part of the project will be done. So it should speed up the whole project from the standpoint that this won't be part of their project.
Given the circumstances, I presume we're going to have a different contractor on this project than we did on the one that we had the trouble with. Is that right?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker, the general contractor will be different because the general contractor on 1st to 6th is not currently doing these projects. The subcontractor that did the pipe on 1st to 6th could be the same pipe contractor on this, but general contractor is not currently doing that work now.
So is the city going to be spending more money to have two separate projects here, or? And I guess the other thing I'm a little bit concerned about, we're going to have some pretty major disruption on that artery there. We're going to have it tore up, sounds like maybe for 2 years instead of one.
Mayor Kelleher and Councilman Reeker, that's a good question. What we're looking at doing is boring this project as well. There's several stretches that when you look at the detail, I mean, it's a great question it's a very busy corridor, and the amount of disruptions, there's a cost to disruptions, not just the cost of construction. And in that light, that's why we're looking at boring. And if you look at the connections to it, there's several stretches that most of the connections are on the west side, and the west side connects to an alley behind. There's quite a few places, an example from Leota to Francis, there's no connections on it at all. So that's a prime spot that we can bore an entire block, and there won't be any holes other than the beginning and the end. And but there will be some disruptions for sure. Our thought is with the process that the city follows, there's less federal guidelines that is done if the city does a project as if the state does it, then we have all the FHWA guidelines, which there's a cost to that.
Sure.
So if we do it, we feel that we'll get a cheaper price per foot using a bonded effort versus we bonded the last project and then paid the state, which then had to follow all the FHWA guidelines, and we paid for it anyway.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Brent.
Matt?
Mayor Keller, Councilman Reeker, I think it's also good to point out that we know this project is coming down the pipeline from the Department of Transportation, and construction costs inflate generally 6 to 10% a year. So if we can get it at today's dollars rather than 2 years down the road, I think that's an advantage for the city.
Thank you.
Mr. Lucas, you have the floor.
Like Mr. Reeker, I haven't forgot about 1st to 6th Street either and the damage inflicted on our business community through that process. I'm all for this project and all for getting it done this year, but I'm not that excited about waiving readings on this, just to give property owners in this area a little time to digest this. Again, I'm all for this project, but I'm for 2 weeks worth of time, or two, maybe 4 at the most. I guess I just want to share that I'm probably not in support of waiver of readings because There were a lot of very upset business owners in the 1st to 6th issue that you were referring to, Ed. Thank you.
Okay, just to sum up our status here, so I think Mr. Nisley and I were slightly confused here. So we did have a motion by Mr. Garrick on number 5 here, and it was seconded by Mr. Reeker. And then Mr. Nisley was suggesting that maybe there would be a friendly amendment regarding the number of readings. But we didn't actually have that friendly amendment at that point. So that's what I was referring to. So sorry if I caused confusion there. So we have had discussion on the initial amendment, or excuse me, on the initial motion, and that's where we stand right now. So if someone would like to propose an amendment to do something, number of readings, whatever, they could do that or not.
I will make a motion to waive the 3 readings on Special Water Improvement District number 4, since there are no assessments to property owners. I certainly understand what Ty is saying, Mr. Lucas, I'm sorry. I just think this project maybe ought to try to get it moving along. That's just my personal feeling, but
Okay,
people may think differently.
so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. Is that a motion? Is that
Okay, we have a motion by Nisley and a second by Tryon. Now we will discussion. Mr. Reeker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brent, is there any way that we can, not we, you, and Lane's department can maybe expedite things in anticipation of a yes vote by the council, so that when that time does in fact come, hopefully it'll be a vote that'll be in favor of the project, which it sounds to me like it's kind of makes a lot of sense to do, to speed it up so that you're not having to wait for all of the design work to get done before you can take it out to bid, or not?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker, we have been working on it, knowing that we have to do it. So we will expedite as much as we can. And to Mr. Lucas's concern on having communication, we're going to communicate with each of the affected property owners directly on the entire route. And I'm beginning that process now. We're not ready to bid it. We're in the design part, but I'm going to be making contact right now to get everybody that's affected on this, at least the property owners affected. The community as a whole will be affected because of the construction efforts.
Well, if I'm understanding correctly, with a bored water line, essentially the disruption is going to be at the beginning of the end, or wherever you begin the boring and terminate the boring, and that may be at several different locations along the route. But the main disruption, it would seem to me like, is going to be disconnection of service until a new service can be reconnected, which shouldn't be longer than a day. Is that correct?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker, that is correct. In general, the services with where we're at, they should be fairly brief interruptions. They'll be installed, pressure test, back T tested, so they'll be approved to be put in service. And once it's put in service, then we can make service connections. So it should be, a lot of times it might be in an hour or two, depending on the complexity of it. In the straightforward one, it should be less than an hour to make a service connection switch over. And those will be case by case to make sure that it's done in a way that it's intelligent with the business, that we're not going to be turning off the water for a restaurant at 11:30. It will be done in a way that makes sense, and we're not turning off the laundromat when it's busy. Things like that, those will be done on a case by case in a similar way that we had to deal with downtown, that we'll work through those, case by case. But it's a good question. There'll be interruptions wherever, like you said, where you start a bore, end a bore, and then where you dig up to make a service connection. Those will be the holes. There will be a hole in Francis Street as an example. That's where we have a four-way water main going north and south and east and west, and that one's going to be pain because it's right in the middle of Francis, but that's where we have to make our connection. But those we'll just walk through as we go through and use traffic control and communicate PSA as much as we can and work through the staff to have it all communicated with the public the best we can.
Thank you, Brent.
Mr. Voles, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Berglund, my observation of this is I agree with Ty. And I don't think we're ready to put this out to bid quite yet. I think a 2-week delay, possibly at our next council meeting, we might waive the full 3. That's just something that I'm thinking about right now. Do you anticipate a funneling approach on Jeffers, like bringing it down to 2 lanes where you're working up against heavy equipment, maybe on the west side? Would the disruption mainly be maybe bringing it to 2 lanes and then your side streets or cross streets is where the disruption would be?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Volz, with the boring, we're anticipating it's going to be up by the sidewalk.
Okay.
On the east side of the sidewalk. So there's going to be big stretches in there that hopefully that doesn't even happen. If we do have to get into that, then yes, that's what I would anticipate is we'd have probably a left lane temporary closure. And it depends on the contractor and the boring equipment on the length. What we're probably looking at is a block or 2 blocks at a time type of process that we'll be going through. So, and the connections are, I think, E, Phillip, Francis, and I think we have one in G. Those are where we're going to have the cross connections that will impact intersections. But in general, with the boring, it should be less than if you're trenching, you're dumping dirt in a lane and blocking it. This should be a lot less disruptive.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, we have a motion on the floor to have only 3 readings on this issue. So we're going to, excuse me. Nope, to waive. Sorry, to waive. Misspoke. Getting old. Okay. So let's vote on that issue, okay? Calling the question. Okay, that does not pass. So there, at least as of this moment, there will be at least 1 more reading on this issue. So now we are back to the original motion on number 5. Do we have any further discussion on that issue?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Berglund, what's the approximate cost, the estimated cost, and will this come out of the water department also?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Garrick, this will be a bonded project, and what we're looking at is probably going to be about 1.25 to $1.5 million range. We're going from an 8-inch pre-1950 main to a 12-inch, which will provide better circulation, better fire flow right through the heart of the community. And it'll connect to a 12 that goes north up 1st through 6th Street. So that's the scope of it. Good question, thanks.
Will this come out of the water? Oh, it'll be bonded.
Yeah, it'll be bonded through that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, calling the question on number 5. Please vote. Okay, number 5 passes. Moving on to number 6. Thank you, Brent. Accept the report from North Platte Volunteer Firefighter Service Award Program Certification Administrator Scott Moses and authorize the incentive funds, $9,000, be held in a trust by First National Bank of North Platte. We have Chief Thompson here if anyone has any questions on this issue.
Dennis, could you come up, Chief, I'm sorry. Just give us a brief summary.
Hey, Jim, hold on. Sorry, we do need a motion. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that I move to accept the report of the North Platte Volunteer Firefighter Service Award Program Certification Administrator, Scott Moses, and have $9,000 held in the trust at First National Bank of North Platte.
Okay,
motion Reeker, second Carmen.
Chief,
Now.
Could you please just briefly explain what this is about?
Sure. Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Nisley. So the Volunteer Firefighters Service Award Program, as stated in the staff summary, This was mandated through state statute. What we've been experiencing for a number of years throughout the state, throughout the country, is a lack of volunteer firemen to serve, especially in the small communities. This was just an incentive to say, hey, you commit to us, you spend some time with us, we're going to do something for you so that after a period of time and you step away, we can offer you a little stipend of some sort for all of your years of service. Most departments don't pay their volunteers anything. North Platte, our volunteers, for every call they respond to, do receive a small stipend paid out every year. But this is just an attempt, and it's worked to some degree across the country in recruiting, and then once we've got them, keeping them. So I think it's been a vital thing. I think North Platte's seen the benefits of it for sure.
Thank you.
Other discussion or questions at this point? Ms. Tryon, you have the floor.
Chief, would you mind explaining a little bit about what this is? I mean, I can kind of guess what it is, but.
So, Mayor Kelleher, Councilwoman Tryon, the list you have in front of you, our service administrator, Scott Moses, one of our volunteers, throughout the year, they keep track of how many emergency calls they respond to, how many trainings they attend, business meetings, fire prevention activities, and then based upon the activity, they accumulate a certain number of points. You have to make at least 10% of all of the calls throughout the year that we call them for. That's a fixed amount. They get 25 points for making that 10%. Drills, again, that is a training. They can accumulate up to a maximum of 25 points for attending drills throughout the year. So, and we understand some folks can't make every drill, but this is another way of encouraging them to be at all those they can. It also, the meetings, they can accumulate, again, up to a maximum of 25 points throughout the year for attending meetings. So what this does is a calculation of the individuals listed there. You see that first column, all of those individuals did get the full 25 points for 10% of calls throughout the year. We have 26 on our roster. That number and those folks you're seeing there tells you really how many active volunteers we have in the community of that 26. So by being that active, and a lot of that is just employer participation too, letting them leave their jobs and things. So, and then again, the drills, the meetings, that's just points they accumulated in each of those categories. They have to get a minimum of 50 total points to be qualified to receive a portion of this funding. So these 15 people, and I will tell you, annually, we average about 12 to 15 annually that make the points. So that $9,000 goes into that fund and is distributed amongst those 15. So their accounts may be bigger than some others in previous years or years to come, depending upon where they are. So I think it's important to note too that our volunteers have worked with us. In the past, this incentive fund, we have budgeted over $10,000 to put into the incentive fund. This year, as we did budgeting, we went to them and said, is there any place you can help us a little bit? And they were more than willing, and this is one of the places they did that. So I give them kudos for that.
Thank you. I thought 25 might be the number of calls.
Yeah.
Other discussion. Mr. Reeker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Thompson, Chief Thompson, help me understand for sure the volunteer fire department does what in relationship to our paid fire department?
Okay. Councilman, or Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker. So our volunteers, we We call them back for any working structure fire. In other words, we know we've got fire in a building. We call them back to provide us extra manpower at those calls. We call our volunteers to most any wildland fire that we're called to. They have a lot of experience in wildland firefighting, and we rely a great deal on them for that. We do occasionally, if our daily staffing on our career side drops below our 10-man minimum, we will call our volunteers to help supplement manning if we're not able to do that otherwise. So they function in multiple roles at different times and are an important part of what we do. The one thing I think that probably would help, of our 26 volunteers on our roster right now, I believe we've got 9 that have EMT certification, which would allow them to function more often in terms of assisting us on ambulance calls. But again, it's just the nature of this, the hours that are involved for a volunteer. It makes it difficult for them. But we rely on them for those instances in particular to provide us that manpower.
So I'm going to show my ignorance here, which not too hard, but regarding, don't we have also a rural fire department in town or not?
Okay, so Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Reeker, we do, and it is under my direction as well. The Rural Fire District has a board of directors that allocate money and all, but I head that up too. I oversee that, and that is all taken care of by our career fire department and our volunteers. They function in that role. There are certainly, as a part of that, there's an agreement between the Rural Fire District and the City of North Platte in terms of what we provide, what they're kicking in to make sure that we're not bearing the brunt of all of that. So they help us with equipment, they help us with some salaries. So it's a great relationship we have there.
But it's the same people that do both?
It's the same people providing the service, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Any more discussion on this issue? Okay. We've had a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Calling the question. Please vote. Okay. Passes. Number 6 is passed. Item number 7, approval of claims.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the claims.
Motion Reeker, second Carmen.
Mr. Mayor.
Discussion, Mr. Lucas, you have the floor.
Just a quick question on the nature of the claim on the golf budget to Mr. Chase, $2,203.78. Just wanted to determine the general nature of that particular claim.
Mr. Kibben or Don?
Mayor Kelleher, Councilman Lucas, that is reimbursement for the property taxes that get paid annually on the driving range portion based on the agreement that the city has.
Okay, so that's what I assumed it had something to do with the driving range. And so does that mean that, is that an arrears expense for having the driving range for the last season, or is that for the upcoming season in essence?
You know, that would be a good question. That is it's an actual reimbursement, so that's based on taxes that have been paid for prior years. And certainly here with the city, we function on a cash basis. So those are for taxes that the Chases have paid, and we are reimbursing them based on the agreement.
You've answered my question, no, thank you. Just want to make sure we're paying behind on the golf course, not forward. Okay, that's all I didn't mean to make this a big discussion point tonight. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, calling the question, please vote. And the motion, the item number 7 passes. Okay, public agenda request. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired in the public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to propose a future agenda item for the council? If so, now would be the time to stand up, please. It appears, council, that we have none. Would anyone like to make a motion at this point?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion Reeker, second Tryon. Everyone vote, please, to adjourn. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
How you doing?
No, wait, they got time though.